Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is Colorado native Nate Muller. He's a former firefighter from Boulder Fire and Rescue right here in Colorado, and just an amazing family man, a great guy. I really enjoyed sitting down and talking to Nate and learning about fire safety and what a firefighter goes through on a daily basis. Here we go. Hey, Nate. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming up. And
Heck yeah.
How's life, man?
Oh, man, I can't complain at all. You know, like I feel super blessed to just be able to enjoy life every day here with my family.
That's great.
Yeah,
and Colorado's a great spot for a family, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And you live down the hill, right? You're down in Parker or something? Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of out in the prairie a little bit, but it's still front range, foothills.
It's all suburb out there. It's just sprawling suburb. It's getting bigger, and soon it's going to be like right up with Castle Rock and then all the way marching down towards Colorado Springs.
Yeah, I'm surprised those two haven't connected yet with as many suburbs that are going up there, and then like you have all the storefronts coming in there like Cabela's all those sort of like big chain stores popping up in there. You know, it tends to bring in a lot of people, but yeah, there's been a huge influx here, and as you know, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast, but that's kind of one of the subjects that we touch on here pretty heavy is
for sure. Just
the influx and trying to educate people on how to use outdoor public lands properly. And we specifically brought you on because you were a firefighter in Boulder and on the Front Range for over 12 years, I think, right? Or right at 12 years. And you just recently have left to pursue being a dad full time, right?
Yeah. It's been a crazy adventure, and we didn't really have a plan going into it. And now, man, I'm just so thankful and so blessed for like how it's become for us.
Yeah, talk about timing, huh, with the whole COVID thing. And, you know, I have some really good friends of mine that are firefighters still, like some of them are out in Vegas. And, man, they've been going through it. I mean, they've had COVID and are still kind of dealing with it. And it's not a pretty thing, man. And especially my hat goes off to all the first responders that are out there right now dealing with it, and you know, all the medical staff in hospitals and stuff like that. It's just a whole different ball game. And
it's
even grocery store workers didn't sign up for that. You know?
The world isn't even close to what it used to be. Like everything is different now than what it was. And even the industry of firefighting, like you said, like a EMS call now is like a hazmat. Everybody like dons everything to try to not contract this or whatever it is. And it's crazy. It adds like a crazy amount of stress to the job, trying not to like bring that stuff home. And then think about what it does to your family too. Like your wife's at home, she's thinking about like, who'd you go in contact with? Who'd you meet at work today? What calls did you run on? Did you ride in the ambulance? Like all that stuff's crazy.
Right. And 9 times out of 10, you guys are going to be the first ones in the door to deal with a COVID patient, you know, that's having trouble breathing or something. For sure. Like whenever there's a 911 call, and we had experienced it with my daughter. We were touching on that before the podcast, and you've experienced it with your son. When somebody's not breathing right, the first thing a 911 operator does is send EMS, right? Absolutely. And if there's any sort of breathing issue, you're pretty much going to take an ambulance ride to the hospital, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and especially with kids, like you always like have an abundance of caution there. Make sure that we're just checking all the boxes and stuff, because kids are super resilient and they compensate until they decompensate. And so a little bit about me, like I met my wife when I worked at Children's Hospital.
Oh, really?
So she was working in admissions and I was working as a EMT tech, and I used to float around to all the different campuses. So I would go work in Parker's campus, and I would work at the main campus in Aurora, go to Lutheran's campus, St. Joe's. I just kind of bounced around to all the different ones, and I got to really just have an experience working with these kids in a different environment than EMS, but the skills and just the knowledge of that was invaluable. And so met my wife there, and that was kind of a pretty crazy way for us to like come together.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what were you doing at Children's exactly?
So I got my EMT certification, and then started looking for jobs. I went to a job fair, got hired at Children's Hospital, and
Really?
so I worked as an EMT basically in the emergency room. And so I had a set of skills. I couldn't do like what nurses do. I couldn't do necessarily like what a paramedic does in the field, but I had kind of a hybrid between all those. So I was doing a little bit more than what an EMT can do in the field, but I was helping
Wow.
work with doctors that would set bones, and I would help with the reductions of those by either pulling traction or whatever it was. I would remove sutures for kids, and then all the way up to just like general patient care stuff.
Wow, that's like next level too. Like, it's one thing to work on an adult or
Right.
or something like that, but then to have a kid, you got to almost be animated half the time, right? Or
You just
have
find-
props or whatever.
Seek that way to relate to him, right? So you got
Yeah.
like your little kid. I remember this little kid, he got smacked in the forehead with a golf club. So he had this big old laceration across the top.
Probably an older brother.
Oh, right? And so it's like open all the way down to his skull. And so the doctor had to do like deep sutures, and then she had to do like sutures on the outside. And I remember just talking to him, and I was like, all right, buddy, so what do you do for sports? And he's like, oh, I play baseball. And I was like, oh, man, I played like center field. That was my jam. Like, I loved being out in center field. And so we just talked baseball the entire time. And it's kind of that same thing when you're talking to little kids. And people often ask me, like, how'd you get into the firefighting industry? And the story I shared with them is like, well, when I was 4 years old, I was riding with my sister. We were going to pick up my other sister from softball practice, and we got in a T-bone accident. My sister was going straight through a stoplight at Kipling and I want to say like Jewel or something like that.
I think I've been in an accident in that same intersection.
It's crazy down there. People go way too fast. So this truck like hits us right on my side of the car, and I'm riding in the front seat, buckled. No like booster seats or any of that kind of stuff back then. And so it sent us spinning for like 100 yards or so from the scene, and so they had to extricate us from the car. My sister was knocked out unconscious. They had to extricate when they got there.
Everybody was okay at the end of that, or
so they put us in the ambulance, take us to the hospital, and my sister had a concussion, and I wound up having nothing happen. The impact was all on the side of the car where I was. I was trapped, like my leg was between the seat and the door, and they had to cut the door off and get me out. And then the doctor's telling my parents, this is even better. Like, this is before cell phones. So my parents don't even know till they get home, get to the, whatever it's called, the recording machine at home and the answering machine. They get this message, call the hospital, come down and like see us. So, they tell my parents, like, oh, he's going to have, like, growth plate issues. He could possibly have issues walking. I had 0 deficits.
It's always worst case scenario, though, in that
Totally.
situation, huh?
And, like, the only thing that happened was the battery exploded on impact, and I was covered in battery acid, but nobody knew.
Wow.
So the only way they knew is when my mom washed my clothes, they all, like, disintegrated in the washing machine. So during all that, I'm in the back of the ambulance, and an EMT handed me a teddy bear, and it's a brown bear with a bag of sugar in it. It's called Sugar Bear, and my little girl has it right now at home in her bed. So I remember giving those out to the little kids all the time. I made it like a point, like every time I had a kid, I'd try to like make it a non crazy traumatic event for them. I'd try to just make it a happy one, like, here's your friend. So I'm in college. I'm going to school studying business down at Metro. I'm working out at the gym, and meet this guy Joe, and he's like, hey man, come to work with me, do a ride along. So I go do this ride along with Joe, and
Joe was a firefighter. I'm assuming. Yeah.
So Joe Anderson, he's a firefighter out in.
Shout out to Joe Anderson, eh?
Heck yeah, he's Adams County Fire. So Joe's the reason I got in the fire service. Started riding with him, got into volunteering in Golden, and then I changed my major immediately. Went to Red Rocks, started studying fire science. So I'm in class, and the director of the program, he's teaching our intro to fire science class, and he's like, so who wants to tell me like why you want to be a firefighter? So all these kids are like, oh, I want to help somebody. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to do the generic answer that everybody like kind of wants to get involved with. And I raised my hand and I told that story of like me being in that car accident, West Metro's district. And he stopped and he said, I was there that day. I remember that car accident.
Really? It
came full circle and it blew my mind. It still even gives me chills to this day to talk about it because Bob Brown, he's an amazing human being. He really like mentored and guided me through my career service. But when somebody asks like, what's your why? Like, how'd you get into it or why'd you get into it? that impact at 4 years old really like kind of guided my direction into the firefighting industry.
And was it just because the firefighters were there helping you? And I mean, it's a cool job. I mean, you guys get to do some cool stuff, right?
Oh,
like you get to cut apart cars. You guys have all kinds of pneumatic tools and chainsaw type tools to cut cars apart and stuff like that. So was it some of that too that kind of
that? And then like I've always been into like team sports. So since I was little, my dad was like real intentional about keeping me in like team sports, baseball, football, soccer, that kind of stuff. And so I like the camaraderie aspect of it. And it's no different than like any other military service person. They're dealing with a team. So you're only like as good as the other members on your team. And that's kind of how like as a tactical athlete in the fire service you would operate. And I loved it. I gravitated towards it. I really like latched onto it. And then I started studying leadership, and man, there's some amazing like rewards and blessings that came out of that whole experience for me. And what I just think like when I was studying business management, my whole intent was to open a landscape business. I had worked in landscaping and did that for 4 years. Was doing small jobs all the way up to huge commercial jobs, running crews, loved it, and thought like, hey man, I can do this for myself. I'm going to go to school and study it. Then I got my eyes open to this whole firefighting thing and realized like there's a whole nother world that I'm missing out on and a whole nother calling. And then realizing that like it was there in my past just from like way earlier. So when you
that camaraderie is great too. I mean, that it's really what makes or breaks a job is the people that are around you, I believe.
Absolutely.
And I come from a rock and roll roadie background where I guess we kind of have that firefighter camaraderie, not on the same level because you guys are actually helping people and we're helping people get fucked up and have a good time, I guess, right, at a concert or enjoy a show, right?
We're there to clean it all up.
But yeah, we pull pranks on each other, and you live with each other on a tour bus 99% of the time, and then you better get along with these people because you work with them all day.
Right.
You're sleeping next to them, basically. And then even on your days off, you're going to go hang out at the bar with them, you know what I mean? So yeah, I can kind of understand that, and I always thought that I always compared our industry a lot to like firefighters, but just the firefighters were probably half cocked on drugs or a hangover.
It's all, man, it cracks me up because like it's all just a brotherhood.
Yeah.
You got those dysfunctional friends and you got the straight and narrows and you got the whole spectrum in there. So you got everybody that you can imagine in every walk of life. And I've talked to friends that have changed fire departments and gone other places and they're like, it's no different anywhere else. It's just different names, but it's the same players.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
You have a different version of the same guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I do the same thing as Bobby, and then we'll have like Orlando version of so and so, and like Miami version of so and so, and LA version of so and so that you work with that locally. It's hilarious.
Oh, totally.
Everywhere.
So I want to dive back a little bit further. Are you a Colorado native? Did you grow up here? And
so I was born in Denver and grew up in Lakewood. My dad grew up in Ray, Colorado.
Okay,
And,
I know where it's at.
My mom was from Beatrice, Nebraska.
I have no idea where that's at.
That was a tiny little town out in Nebraska.
Okay.
Her dad got a job working at Rocky Flats. And as a machinist when it was still open and running, and then they moved everybody out here to north of Boulder, out in like the country back then. And a story my grandma told of like moving to Colorado was like she came out here with a friend, and it was the first time that she had ever parallel parked a car. Was when she came to Boulder because that's how big Boulder was compared to like Beatrice. So.
I bet you that was a bit of a culture shock, especially when you go, what is it? Is it, it's not Capitol Hill, but what's the...
like the Hill?
The Hill. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. If anybody that's listening that's never been to Boulder and has never been to the Hill, there's a lot of patchouli, a lot of guitars, a lot of Colorado air fresheners, what I call it now, a lot of marijuana smoke going on down there, but
and then like
just interesting people, man.
Totally. And like these kids come from all over the nation. Most of them seem to come from like pretty affluent black backgrounds, and college kids everywhere. So you got these. We would go on emergency calls for people that live on the hill. They'd lived there 100 years or whatever. Or it's like a family home that's been in there like multi generations, and right next door is like a frat house.
Right.
And it's like you got it all right there.
Yeah.
Kids in the front yard playing beer pong, and we would clean up the whole mess. That seemed to be like our calling up there.
Oh man, I can't imagine some of the calls you guys have been on there.
Just a mess.
Yeah. So did you go to school in Denver then, or?
Yeah. So I grew up in Lakewood. Went to Lakewood High School. Graduated. Went down to. I was supposed to play football at Durango.
Okay.
At Fort Lewis. Went down there for training camp. Didn't really like jive with the team, so left there. Went to Metro State, and then that was where I was studying business management. And then all the while, I mean, Metro's like a commuting campus, so everybody's got a job. I was working full time doing the landscaping. And then that's when all that other stuff happened that I was just talking about with like meeting Joe at the gym and working out and then getting into the fire service.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as far as schooling goes for becoming a firefighter, you have to take a firefighter science class and or something like that. Or it used to be, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So like it's a good thing to kind of get your feet wet and get into it. The thing I always tell people when they ask like, hey, how do I get into firefighting? I'm like, hey, come do a ride along. Come hang out at the fire station. When like this whole thing with COVID's over, go hang out at the fire station, knock on the door, meet the guys, say, hey, like, how can I like sign up for a ride along with you guys? I want to come spend the day with you. Get around it. Make sure that it's for you. Because that's how I really like figured it out, was going to do that ride along with Joe. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, here's the next criteria is you got to get your EMT certificate. Then you start testing, you start going to school. Because you don't have to go to school to get all the certificates. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have any of those things.
Oh, really? Okay.
It helps, but it only just kind of like sets you apart from other candidates. At the same time, you're going to go through an academy for 16 weeks. And right before I get my letter that I'm accepted to Boulder, right when I meet Lacey, my wife, and a month later I'm in academy. So wow. That's kind of like how crazy our life has been. And during academy, you go through, break you down, build you back up. You're going through learning all the skill acquisition. You're going through just making sure that you build on the basics and get a little bit more advanced so that you come out of there as a pretty well-rounded firefighter. You do have all the state certifications that you need for the basic level. So your firefighter 1, you'll have your hazmat, and then your EMT was probably your requirement to be in there. So those are like the main 3. And then after that, it's kind of the wherever you decide to go with it.
Okay. And then once you get placed at a department or something like that, do they just throw you to the wolves? I mean, they're probably not going to send you into a 4-alarm fire right off the bat, right? Or
so we were fortunate enough to let like our probationary, or we call them the new kids, but like our probationary kids would come out of academy.
Rookie, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You come up with different names for them. Come out of academy and you're expecting to be like messed with. You're expecting to kind of have the guys razz you a little bit, but they placed us on an engine. You're a 4th on there. So in Boulder, we don't run 4 people on an apparatus. We run 3. So you were an extra for the day. And you're basically shadowing the other firefighter, the lieutenant's guiding you, and the engineer's kind of just holding everybody together. And so I want to say it was like four shifts. You're shadowing, and then after that you're on your own.
Really?
And when I say that, though, you've acquired the skills through academy to be able to, if we rolled up on a fire, the lieutenant could say, stretch me a line to the front door, and you would stretch the line, get it ready at the front door, and the lieutenant and you are going to go in and fight the fire. So it's not like coming out of academy that you weren't prepared with the basic skills, but you definitely didn't have the confidence. You may have had the competence that's required to like do the job.
Right.
But the confidence is the thing that you acquire through all that experience and working with those other guys.
And how often do you see somebody go into like a freeze mode? Like,
a
lot? Or is it, I mean, I would imagine if I never dove into firefighting, like I was saying, my family has a long history with being firefighters and stuff. And
sure.
My grandfather was gracious enough I didn't really have a father figure growing up, so my grandfather was more my father figure. And he kind of just sat me down one day and just told me, like, hey, if this is something that you want to do. I said, well, I kind of like the firefighting aspect of it. And he said, well, you're going to go on 80% of your calls are going to be accidents.
Right.
as opposed to actually fighting fires and helping rescue people
Right.
more than you're fighting fires, especially as technology has gotten better, like smoke alarms and all these house alarms and all that sort of stuff. There's not as many fires to fight anymore, but there's plenty of car accidents to go on. I was just kind of like, I don't know if it's for me, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah, that's the reality of it is 75% of the call volume is going to be EMS. So we're going to be running medical calls most of the day, especially in Boulder. You've got a very, very diverse population that was there. So we had transients, we had college kids, we had the tourists that were coming in and out, we had the normal population that lived there. So yeah, we ran a ton of EMS calls, and yet there's still old enough buildings there, and there's college kids that are making whatever decisions that they make in college,
right?
That kind of help us.
How many frat houses have burned down?
Man, frat houses all have sprinklers in them because at some point they had a fire,
right.
And then they had to be retrofitted with sprinklers. So like you were saying, a lot of the protection systems are in place, and so that's good for public safety. It definitely helps us out too with not having to perform as many rescues and things. But as far as like fighting fires, the number is way down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the reality, and that was kind of the litmus test. And EMT school was I saw a lot of kids drop out once they started seeing like how traumatic some of this stuff could be.
That's kind of what pushed me over the edge of not going into that. Is I just don't.
Sure.
I think if I was called, or if I was put in a position where I had to help somebody, no problem. But it's just not for me, man.
Yeah,
Blood and guts is not for me. So
I started volunteering in Golden, and it was an amazing opportunity there because you've got all these like high-speed highways running through there.
yeah,
So I would go on extrications all the time. We'd be flighting people. It was crazy. It was the most extrications I probably had in the short 2 years that I was there volunteering. That I never saw that many extrications again when I was in Boulder, just because of the speeds.
Well, isn't
and
it like right there at I-70 and like the Morrison exit,
Totally.
right?
Yep.
There's a landing pad that's in the middle of the highway for Flight for Life or whatever medevac you need there, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty insane. Like they have the wind markers and all that stuff because they land so many helicopters there.
They just know that that was an area that was like a high probability of it, and it was a good landing zone because I may even like take somebody by ambulance from further up I-70, drive them down to the helicopter down there as well. And then we also had crazy accidents up in the canyon that leads up to Blackhawk on.
Oh
58.
yeah,
I mean that was some crazy stuff up there too. So just that was kind of like you said, like figuring it all out. Most of the calls that I ran there volunteering, I lived in town to make sure that I was running as many calls as I could because I was a single college guy that just doing my thing, and so I was enjoying doing all that stuff, and got on the Swiftwater rescue team there. So when you talk about like avenues you can go, once you're in, you can kind of expand to your specialties, and so I got on Swiftwater rescue and loved doing that. And then all of a sudden I get this letter in the mail after I've been testing for a while to go up to Boulder, and saw a lot more fire in Boulder than I ever saw in Golden. And,
really?
So it was definitely like a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. So what is when you were at the Boulder station and a full-time firefighter?
Yep.
What's a day in the life of a firefighter like? I mean, is it 48 on then 48 off, or how?
So Boulder, right after I got hired, went to a 48-96 schedule. So I'd go to work for 2 days, live at the firehouse for 2 days straight, and then I'd be home for 4 days straight with my family. Pretty amazing sounding schedule. It was definitely like, it was just hard on the family sometimes because like when you're gone for those 2 full days. So my wife Lacey grew up on a farm. She was pretty self-sufficient. So during those like 2 days, she could kind of handle business around the house, and like, you know, if something broke, she'd be able to kind of take care of it at least till I got home. But I think that requires a special support system there for her to be able to like handle me being gone for that amount of time. But
Not to mention when you come back, you're probably wiped out from
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we would have busy stations. Station 3 in Boulder was like my favorite place to work at, and it's off of Arapahoe and Canyon, anyways.
Somewhere in the
Arapahoe and 28th. I don't
Okay.
even know why I'm talking about that. So anyways, Arapahoe and 28th, and like super busy station. It would run to campus. It would run to like all kinds of different stuff. And you might not get any sleep at night. You might have to just take a few naps and rest, do the best you can, but you would come home just wiped out. And then that 4 days is your recovery time. So the first day, sometimes it was kind of rough coming back home, reacclimating to everything.
Especially when you have young kids, huh? Because they're like, Dad's home, you know? Like,
They don't know how to like gate it back. They're
Right.
excited you're back. So for me, like there was a couple of amazing things that I had, which was Lacey. Her expectation was like, you know, you've been gone for 2 days. Now it's my turn to take a break. So I couldn't really like pamper myself or like
Right.
be like, oh, I'll go take a nap half the day and then I'll see you at noon or something. And then I also had an hour drive coming home from work. So driving that hour home, I could kind of disconnect, get my mind right, get back into like dad and husband mode, and then spend the time with my kids, and then just go to bed early was like my compensatory mechanism for working around that one. So
right.
sometimes I would come home exhausted, sometimes I'd be fine.
Probably really happy to see your kids, though, after running
Oh,
a
yeah.
shift or some calls, I would imagine, because you guys don't always have the I mean, it's a cool job, but you guys deal with so much emotionally, too. I can imagine it takes a toll.
Yeah, for sure.
on you
So
that way.
like hypervigilance is a big thing there. So like when you're at work, you're on call. So whether you're like working out, training, doing an inspection, doing a pub ed, whatever it is, making lunch, you're still on call. So you got this like heightened awareness to what's going on around you, ready to respond. At a
Can't
moment's
let your
notice.
guard down, huh?
No,
Yeah.
so yeah, that tone will go off in the station, and they expect you out the door in under a minute.
Right.
So you may be doing whatever it is, and you gotta shut off the stove, run up the stairs, get out there, get bunked out. Get
Make
on
sure
the
you
truck
don't
and
burn
out
the
door.
fire station down.
We had to like shut the stove off button so we could punch that. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, you could come out just emotionally wiped out. But thank goodness for FaceTime, because I can like see my kids while I was there.
It's a game changer. I mean, I probably still wouldn't be. I still dibble dabble in the entertainment industry and still have to travel, but
Right.
what a game changer that is to be able to FaceTime your kid. It's still not the same.
No, but
That's why I do all my podcasts in person, because I feel like a one-on-one conversation where you're actually looking at somebody and have body language and
Yeah.
that sort of thing is just so much better.
yeah,
But,
you're like seeking to connect still.
yeah.
Like the video gives you some emotion, and I could see my kids, and we would usually do it while they were eating dinner, so I could like talk to them and stuff. But
Yeah.
nothing replaces like being home when they like run into your arms and
Yeah.
just drop to your knees. So
Always excited to see you.
yeah, you count your blessings a little more with the stuff you see.
Yeah, I
for sure.
bet. What is in your opinion, what is the toughest part of that career choice if somebody decides to make it? Is it having that heightened awareness and stress, or is it
I think like self-care,
yeah.
like taking care of yourself and like making sure that you're emotionally becoming resilient. So not that you're ignoring that stuff that you see at work.
Sure.
Because we see the worst of the worst. And then being able to like process, deal with it in a healthy way, have a amazing relationship with your spouse by talking about it, being able to like work it out. But also like when I left work, I didn't let it bleed over into my life and like become this obsession or anything like that. Like it was a part of me, but it wasn't like what defined me. There's a lot of like cliches about that stuff.
Sure.
But in that industry, it's pretty hard because you go to work, you put on that Superman cape, people call 911 and you show up to fix their problem. You come home, and you're just average dad at that point. I mean, like the neighborhood knows who you are because they're like, oh yeah, I live next door to the firefighter, and that's cool. But just making sure to like take care of yourself, not let it go to your head. Make sure that you like have hobbies, get outside, do some stuff. We have an amazing resource here living in Colorado. Go fishing, go hiking, get your mind
Yeah.
right. All that fresh air is what kind of just like keeps you right.
We're so fortunate here to have all that stuff and the climate that we do, and just it's really easy. Even if you're living down in town where it's hot, you can in a half an hour to an hour, you can be up in the mountains and have basically whatever kind of temperature you want, right? If you go to 14,000 feet,
Right.
it can be 40 degrees on a summer day.
Oh yeah.
You might not be able to breathe up there when you're hiking around, but you won't be hot.
Well, what's crazy is like living here, we're all like used to the like thin
Yeah.
air. And it was crazy how many people would come to Colorado from out of state because they just want to see it. They've never been here before. And we would deal with altitude sickness all the time because it's crazy. We're training at altitude up here. So
Yeah.
uh,
And I think it really sneaks up on you too. It doesn't happen right away. It's kind of like a couple days into like a visit, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that people could do to curb that, or what would you guys do if you were responding to a call that somebody was super altitude sick?
Yeah, for sure. So that happened all the time. I'd talk to people and I'd just be like, hey, so there's no reason for you to go to the hospital right now. You're dehydrated. You're definitely like experiencing some altitude sickness. So the big thing is acclimate. Don't overdo it. Take your time. Drink a ton of water. Your body's pouring out water all the time. It's drier here than at the lower elevations. So make sure that you're hydrating a lot. And then a lot of people would come up here because they wanted to experiment with marijuana and medicinals, edibles. And
that's what happens when I smoke too much. I can't breathe. I'm like, oh God, can't breathe.
Well, they'd all wait. They'd be like, well, I just came here for the first time and I ate like an entire cookie. And we'd be like, whoa, as first responders, we're trained to that. Like, you're supposed to eat like an eighth of that cookie or whatever. So yeah, those would be like the kind of things that I think everybody just take it easy.
Right.
And go at your pace. Don't try to go at like the pace of somebody that lives here or your family members. Everybody would come to Boulder. They'd go to Chautauqua Park. They'd want to go for these crazy long hikes. And then at some point we would be up on the trail rescuing somebody in the family that either had a medical emergency from altitude sickness, they were having a cardiac event, or they injured themselves. And so it'd be Boulder and Rocky Mountain Rescue would be working together, get these patients extricated out. And lo and behold, well, they just flew into town 2 days before from like Tennessee or something. And we'd be like, oh, maybe just take it easy next time. Stay on the easy trails. Don't go too far. Know your limitations, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that too is when people are out and just talking to other people that work in search and rescue and stuff like that. Grab one of those maps when you're there so you can let somebody know where you're at.
Oh, yeah. Right?
Because that's a big thing. Like, you get a call to an open space park, you might not know exactly where somebody's at, and then you got to go find them, and it's just you're wasting time.
Oh, totally. And what's amazing is there's resources like there's different apps out there that have your trails on them.
Yeah.
But even Google Maps has all the trails on them. So we would just be like, all right, open Google Maps on your phone if you can even like open your phone.
Sure.
Give us a coordinate, and then we can plug that in and we can get to you. So like we had good resources, but working with the RP or the person, the reporting party that's calling in, we would kind of like figure it out somehow.
Yeah. Where are you? There's a tree. There's a rock.
I started.
There's a big rock.
I
can see the mountain.
I cut a couple trails over, and now I'm like in the backcountry. It's dark. I don't know where I am. It's
well, we're not sponsored by Garmin, but I'm a big fan of them. I have Garmin Watch and the InReach because we do a lot of backcountry with the family and stuff, and it's just a peace of mind having that SOS device.
Sure.
But not only that, I mean, if you can get a hold of somebody, then you have your coordinates at least, totally. North and south. That's huge, right? That's everything.
Drop a pin somewhere, and I can at least get to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, that's crazy. What are some of the differences you think from being a firefighter anywhere else in the country? Like, if you're a firefighter in Dallas in the middle of summer, you're dealing with heat, or Vegas, right?
Yeah.
But then here you're dealing with altitude, and how does that change your breathing apparatus and stuff like that?
The elements kind of sneak up on you quick. So like we would have kids that would go out hiking during the day in shorts in the fall, and it gets super cold in the afternoon, and they'd be like freezing because they got lost and they're not dressed for like the right conditions. So I grew up in the Boy Scouts, and the thing was, be prepared.
Yeah.
So you would throw your backpack on, even if you're wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, bring a jacket, bring some pants with you in that backpack with you, because you never know what's going to happen. So that was kind of some of the stuff that we would deal with, is like the extremes in change. We don't have like a heat index here or anything like that. But yeah, things change all the time. And then like Boulder is a metropolitan city built right on the foothills. So we would have anything from people that are just in town to shop on the Pearl Street Mall getting overheated, to going up in the hills and hiking around. People that were tubing, have like water accidents, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever go on any rock climbing accidents, or because that's pretty big up in Boulder Canyon, right?
For sure. So we would respond to like support Rocky Mountain Rescue, but Rocky Mountain Rescue is the authority having jurisdiction, so they would do the actual technical response for like rock pickoffs and things like that. That wasn't as common. So they would usually, it would be somebody that fell, we would have to go rescue them then. And so, yeah, we were always there to support them, whether it was like bringing gear in, helping extricate patients, whatever it looked like, get them to a landing site for a helicopter, that kind of thing.
And, wildland fires are a huge thing here.
Yeah,
and
you
it's
guys
it's
just
one
have-
thing I want to touch with you
Yeah,
on.
you just had one up here.
Yeah, we were trying to get somebody from Evergreen Fire in last week, but they've just been so hammered with it all.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think they just got it out 2 weeks ago, but the response here that we had was amazing. So shout out to all those firefighters here. And we're
Yeah.
primarily a volunteer-based community
Yep.
just because we don't have the population or infrastructure. So really my hat goes off to all those people that volunteer and stuff. And where it started burning was this really steep mountain, a lot of cliffs, and it's not easy to get to. So they started sending in helicopters. And right where I live, we actually got evacuated.
Sure.
And it was unbelievable how much water. I mean, I thought it was raining at first, but it was just residual water coming off the helicopters flying over the house. And I think they had, I don't know, they must have at least had 4 of them going. And they were just, it was incredible to watch.
What did it feel like, to have to evacuate?
Well, it's not the first time for me. I grew up in Colorado. I'm a Colorado native, and I've always lived kind of in this area, in or around Evergreen. And the first fire I ever got evacuated from was actually the Hayman fire.
Yep.
And I was living back in Pine Junction at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was me, it was a bachelor pad of a bunch of buddies. And, of course, we didn't know any better. But, that fire went off, and we literally sat around for a week and a half because I worked up in that area at this time too. I was working at a sawmill, and you couldn't go to work. Everything was just shut down in that area, and that was just such a huge fire. And it got crazy because that one was more crazy to me than this one. This one was a little bit more, I guess it was orchestrated. Maybe the Hayman fire to me, from what I remember, was the first really, really big fire that I remember in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And people were crazy. I mean, I witnessed a guy punch a deputy that was up there. I don't know if it was a Park County sheriff or a Jeffco sheriff, but he had horses or something. He had a horse trailer hooked up, and he was trying to get back to go get his horses. They wouldn't let him back. And then they ended up bringing in the National Guard because it was happening more than once. And we were stupid as kids. We hiked back there because there was a puppy and we needed the PlayStation or whatever, right? Really stupid shit, right? But we hiked back to the bachelor pad to get that sort of stuff. And
This is the one that you were telling me about when we went shooting.
yeah, man, it burned.
Devastating.
I don't know. Can you look up and see how many acres that fire burned?
It was huge.
It was a lot, and it burned for it was almost 3 weeks, I think, or
Was it
a
a
better part.
Yeah. Well, I was little, and I remember that that was where, Deckers was where I used to go fly fishing all the time with my brother-in-law. I grew up going there. And
Awesome spot.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I still take my little boy up there.
Yeah.
But it messed up the ecosystem so bad with all the silt and everything from that.
Yeah. Screwed up the rivers. I mean, all kinds of different stuff.
It took forever for us to be able to get back up there to start doing fly fishing again. But, I just wanted to kind of hear your, side of it because I was up at 4 Mile when that happened just outside of Boulder.
Okay.
And I remember being at the fire station downtown and just kind of seeing this, column of smoke starting up. And then all of a sudden it just blew up, and it was all the indices were right there for the perfect storm. And I mean, it just took off. It got going quick. And I remember talking to some of the guys that were the first that responded in from our department to go help as mutual aid. And they said it just felt like a war zone in there. They were just driving through fire after fire. Everything was on fire. The world was on fire in there.
It was crazy. We sat on a hill, and we were literally watching and I don't know if you've experienced this firsthand. I'm sure that you have, dealing with wildfires. But, in a campfire, and there'll be a cinder, right? And I believe it's sap that's inside of pine is a really sappy tree, and that's what we burn here a lot at campfires. We got another dog in the studio. This time it's mine. But it's
Bobby,
not me, guys.
What was the name of that fire?
It was the Hayman fire or Hayden fire, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, those cinders will pop off and it'll blow it outside of the campfire ring of rocks, you got to watch it. You don't want one of those ending up in your lap or something like that. But we were watching full trees explode like that. Like
Totally.
they were almost like bombs going off. I mean, because we were on another ridge looking down on the fire, watching the planes come in and helicopters.
Yep.
And you would just see these full trees just explode. And then I can't imagine how hard that would be to fight, because you're talking about flaming pieces of wood and boiling hot sap going, I would imagine they were shooting 30, 40 yards.
At least.
And then it just starts another fire, and then it's
yeah.
just burning in circles, right?
So it's 140,000 acres.
God.
It got huge.
Yeah.
I remember that fire got enormous.
And I think it got, how many homes, Jeremy? I want to say there was like at least 100 homes.
It was like one of the most devastating at its time.
Yeah.
And then was 4 Mile, then I think like Black Forest, and then Waldo Canyon. I mean, like, we've had some pretty significant fires here in Colorado, and now I think the reality is, it was always like, oh, well, California has all that happening. And the reality is now we've pushed our suburbs right up against the foothills to the point where people do have to really just have like a heightened awareness about mitigation or the possibility that they could have to evacuate. And we're talking like in Boulder, we would train all the time about, we've got this super dense population, even the hill, built right up against like these mountain areas, that if we had a start up there, that it could, where would we stop? Well, would we go like 2 blocks in and write off all these like homes that are multi-million-dollar homes, and I don't even mean it like write them off, but like we may have to draw a line in the sand that like this is where we can save them from. When you're talking about like things blowing up like that too, those guys that were up at 4 Mile were telling me as they were driving through, they would just see those massive propane tanks that are next to houses and stuff.
Because you don't have power and natural gas and stuff like that run. So these people have these, what are they, 100-gallon propane tanks? These huge tanks that a semi-truck basically pulls up, or a bobtail, and fills these things up. So I can
tons
only
of fuel.
Yeah.
And then that thing gets heated up. It blows up. I mean, they just said it was kind of like a war zone from that perspective, too, because they would just have things popping off, blowing up all over.
So it said 600 structure.
Wow.
600 structures.
133
homes.
Yeah.
Wow.
One commercial building.
Crazy.
Out. Oh, my God. That's incredible.
It is. And, that's like the human aspect, is that it affects and touches like so many different parts of people's lives. So, it may be like ruining your house, but it also could be ruining your crops that you were going to harvest, like your hay up there in the field or something like that. Or you had like timber that you were going to harvest for firewood or whatever. And now all that stuff's gone. Or like the horses and that stuff.
And just the after effects too. Even when the fire's out, there's all kinds of flooding that happens and erosion, and it's gnarly.
Well, and like human beings, like we always talk about, we have to be like careful. We're out in the middle of the wilderness. People start like their little campfires, and in Boulder we would deal a lot with transients that are living up in the hills.
Yeah.
And so if a transient started a fire, that's pretty crazy, because that little fire that they started back in there could grow and take out a few homes or something. So Boulder was pretty like proactive as soon as a lot of stuff started happening. Back in 2008 when I started there, they had a seasonal wildland program and a couple of like full-time employees, but otherwise it was just seasonal guys. And then after 4 Mile happened, they went to a full division that they hired of just specialized wildland firefighters. So Station 8, that's out by the reservoir in Boulder, it's fully staffed just by wildland people, and they basically they were guys that ran from like hot shots.
Really?
There were guys that were smoke jumpers, incident management team members from like IC3 to IC1. I mean, like the full spectrum of like pretty amazing.
Some of the equipment that they have now, like I don't think they had back in the Hayman fire that I remember, like those brush trucks and like all this different type of stuff. And for anybody that doesn't know, a brush truck is like it's got these oversized tires. It can like basically mow over trees to get to where they need to go. And then a lot of the fire apparatus, like the water tanks and spray hoses and stuff, are ran from inside the truck, so the operator doesn't, or the engineer doesn't even have to get out, right?
For sure. So like we would, these are mostly like type 6s is what they're called. So like there's all different typing of apparatus. That's like a type 3 right there. And the typing just really has to do with the size of the pump on the apparatus, the amount of hose on it, and the amount of water that's on it.
Okay.
So like what you're talking about, like a F350 or something that's got a pump on the back and a box on it, that thing is perfect for going up a 4-wheel drive trail, a logging trail, something like that, to be able to like get in there, maybe do like an indirect attack. We could get in there 3-4 hours ahead of the fire, prep an area. We might be able to like cut down some trees. We might be able to like put in some line that's going to help to stop some of the like ground fire or something like that. If we're talking like stuff that's getting in the trees, we're needing bulldozers at that point. We got to put in some big line. And during 4 Mile, there was a guy that lived up there that had a bulldozer, and he just started, no coordination with any of us, but he just started cutting line. And some of it we worked off of, and some of it, didn't really help us. But it was at least a resource that was there. And out in like California, that was stuff that they had all the time readily available. They'd have a low boy that would pull up a semi with the
red D12, huh?
Oh yeah, and they would just
firefighter insignia on it.
Start
and all that, yeah.
driving straight up the hill and punch in some line. They might be 2-3 miles out from the fire, but that was where they were kind of like making a line, because it's not like a bulldozer can move super fast. I'm a little confused on the retardant spray. Do they spray that actually over the fire to extinguish it, or is it on the fire line? So like, there's 2 ways to attack a fire: is direct and indirect. If it's small, we'll go direct on it. If it's big, we're going to go indirect, which is where we're going to create a line. We're going to anchor in somewhere, which is somewhere hard. That's going to be a road, a trail, something that's like the fire's not going to pass over that. And from there, we're going to start drawing lines around the fire. And drawing lines, we're using hand tools with firefighters on the ground. They're actually like digging, scratching down to like bare mineral earth. Or, like I said, a bulldozer may be another thing. Or we've got people that are sawyers that are up and cutting trees down maybe near the fire line that are going to be like hazards that could fall over the fire line, stuff like that. When we call in like helicopters and like call in for air support, they're laying that retardant down to just extend the line.
Got it.
So it's not intended to like extinguish the fire. It's intended so that when the fire burns up to that point, the fire is not the fuels are not as like readily available to burn.
It's pretty amazing. Like, right where I live, there's some open space right behind us, and where that fire was burning was actually open space park too.
Sure.
So I was up there hiking around this morning, and I was just thinking about our podcast, and I was kind of looking at the ridge, and you can see where the trees are all burnt, and then you can see the red strip of retardant like right around it, where it just stopped it right there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So
it's pretty nuts. I forget what all the like chemical composition is of it, but yeah, that stuff's amazing. And they try to like paint it on so that it's not going to get like washed off by rain or anything.
Sure.
Wildfires are pretty crazy, and they create their own weather. There's such like heat that comes out of them that they get up in the atmosphere, and they can actually like create their own thunderstorms and things, which then creates more wind, which then drives the fire. When you were talking about like where this fire was up here in Evergreen, topography is huge. So if a fire starts low on like a slope or an aspect, it's preheating all those trees that are above it. So if it's down here, all these trees up here are getting hotter and hotter as that smoke is like preheating them, drying them out. And then it starts running super fast. And then you'll start seeing the things like you were talking about, where these trees are like blowing up, just exploding and stuff from all the heat. Well, it's all the like flames as they're like convectively like heating this area, and it just starts running and preheating and running and preheating and running until it gets to like a point where it may be at like a ridge. Then it creeps down the backside unless there's wind pushing it.
It's crazy. I not this fire specifically, but there was another wildfire, and I don't know which one it was. I don't even know if it was named. It wasn't that big, but it was one that started. It was up around Deckers again. It was a super overcast day, and it was probably like a June or July, something like that. And you could see right where the cloud of smoke was coming up, but also it was so much heat that it just evaporated a circle in the clouds.
Oh, sure.
It was insane. It was just like the entire sky was gray, except for this one circle, just blue sky coming right through. It was like, it's insane the amount of heat that comes off of that, you know, and how much fuel's there. So what are some things, if you're a camper, I mean, obviously you got to pay attention to fire bans.
Right.
But let's say that you don't, and you end up having a campfire.
Sure.
What's the best way to extinguish it? I mean, we've always heard drown your campfires.
Yep.
I've always thrown dirt over mine.
Yeah.
On top of that, after drowning it, and you would be surprised how many gallons of water it takes to put out a campfire.
For sure.
I mean, you can dump multiple gallons on it, and it's nasty. It starts blowing white smoke and all that. And if you've never been camping or ever put out a fire the proper way, I mean, you're talking a good at least 5 to 6 gallons of water to extinguish a campfire, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is like, I think the main thing that people need to understand is that water like fights the BTUs. So like if we can convert that fire in a way to cool it off, that's the way we're going to go after it. So if you got water available, you go camping, whatever it is, you start your campfire, you got a stream or something that's nearby, definitely like just put copious amounts of water on it. It's going to save you. It's going to save like the forest. It's worth the time to like take care of it in that way. People that like let them burn out overnight, that's just reckless and irresponsible for you. Because I mean, if you've ever been camping in Colorado at night, there's tons of winds that blow around. And
especially if you're anywhere like in a wilderness area, like the flat tops or something like that. You get those microbursts, and it can be a cool, calm day.
Yep.
And even here on the Front Range, like down at Thunder Valley or any of those spots, you'll get these microbursts that happen, and it's 60-mile-an-hour winds when it was calm and peaceful a minute ago,
So that log that you just had in your fire, it's holding all that heat and embers in there. It's like burned out for what you think, but all those hot coals are in there. So this 60-mile-an-hour burst comes out of nowhere. You just blew on the match, restarted it, and now all those embers. So that's the other thing that's really crazy is that fires create all those embers. They're like, ember cast is like a huge hazard. So all those embers could be casting up to a mile away from the main fire.
Wow.
So you get these embers that come out of your campfire, they get up in the tree tops, and now we're off to the races.
Right.
So like, it's worth the time to just dump water on the fire, put it out correctly. It saves you. It saves the headache. You don't even
probably going to save some homes. It might save some lives.
The legal battle that you're going to go through after that. I mean, like, it's just not worth it. And then, the other thing is throw some dirt on it. What's amazing to me and blew my mind is going up to 4 Mile. There was an area that I was assigned to where the fire had burned through, and we were just kind of going in there to punk around, look for like hot spots and stuff. And these like tree roots that are underground, like 2 feet underground, are holding in heat. Like the amount of heat that's in some of these areas after a fire has gone through and just scorched the earth, it kind of just was surprising to me. So heat, or the dirt can actually like incubate and hold in heat as well. So water is the way to go.
Okay. So you would recommend not piling dirt on top of it?
I don't say no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you got to use what you got up there.
Yeah, sure.
But it just blew my mind, like, how those hot embers can still hold heat for a while.
What was it? Was it the Jeremiah Johnson movies or something where he would, like, I don't know. I just remember, like, some old mountain men, like, they were taking embers out of the fire or coal, and then they would build it a bed and then put their sleeping bedrolls over it, geez. Right? It's like, so they could sleep warm all night, but...
Yeah, it's amazing. And like, what's really crazy, and like you said, our hats are off to the volunteers that go up there. You're spending your night up at the fire,
yeah.
Especially in Colorado, it gets cold.
Yeah.
So heck yeah, you're gonna search out that hot spot that's up there near the fire. You're like, we'll take care of this hot spot tomorrow. We're gonna like put our sleeping bags over here and stay warm for the night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my hat really goes off to all those men and women, because a lot of that firefighting force, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, is I would say, I don't know exactly, but a good portion of it's got to be volunteer, like at least over half, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of mountain communities that are volunteer only for their fire departments, or a combination. So they may have some paid people, which is a great investment for the community. I think that any community that can invest in that response or having those people there is a huge resource for them. But yeah, for the most part, like wildland firefighting, when it's at a local level, you're talking volunteers running up there, and
a lot of times where these start are remote spots. You know?
Yeah, and it's older equipment that they're using, but it's the crazy thing is the knowledge that these people have. Like, you live in here in Evergreen, you know the place better than I do. So I'm going to come in from an outside as a mutual aid, and I'm going to help you out, but I don't know the place as well. So those volunteers are invaluable.
Yeah.
Colorado definitely like really upped its game right after some of the big fires like down in Colorado Springs, they invested a lot in those air resources like you were saying. And so now locally we can handle a lot of stuff before it goes into like a national incident management team. Once it goes to a national level, we're bringing resources from all over the nation. So you might bring in helicopters, airplanes and stuff. They're going to store them at, Jeffco Airport or something like that, and then have them available to go up there and do those drops. They're going to bring in hotshot crews, hand crews. They're going to bring in all these people to go out there and work the fire. And you might have 400 or 500 people that aren't even from Colorado, so that the volunteers can go back and keep protecting their community.
Sure.
So it's pretty amazing, though, like if in the initial attack is what we call the IA. So we get this fire that started, and we call for resources. The cavalry's coming because we know that, all these local agencies are going to be sending on-duty firefighters, whatever they have available. They're coming from all the metro area departments and wherever they can, like, share people, and they're sending them up to wherever needs it. So I think that speaks to what you were talking about with all the resources coming up.
Man, it was awesome. It was incredible. It was a sight to see. I think I posted some pictures on our Instagram page of the helicopters coming in. I think there was a little bit of video that we put up on there too. But yeah, thanks to all those men and women that took that on and helped save my home. It was pretty crazy. When I was leaving, I grabbed some family pictures and just stuff like that. We have a little fire safe that has like birth certificates and like ready to go.
Right.
And the other thing I did is I tried to clear as much. You'd be surprised how much flammable stuff is in your garage. And we have a detached garage. So I tried to get like all the gas from my chainsaw. I got a Harley. I got all this propane bottles. I have a little gas forge that I blacksmith out of just as a hobby. And it was like just taking it all down to the end of the driveway, At least I wasn't going to pack it out with me, but at least get it away from anything that might catch on fire. But yeah, so fire bans can be really confusing too.
Right.
Is there one universal place where somebody could go and kind of catch up on it? Because I know it goes by county, and some places or some counties specifically say like no shooting because you might set off a spark, or there's all kinds of different fire bans and mitigation stuff that needs to happen.
Well, yeah, I think that it's best wherever you live, just check like the county website, see what they say, like as far as like what the level is, what the restrictions are under that level. It'd be amazing if we'd all get on the same page, but I mean, it does have to be a local kind of like tailored thing too, because it can't just be a blanket for the entire state.
Sure.
So that all said, Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Safety, I think, or Public Safety, I think that's the website.
Okay.
They're a great resource. But then also just check your county site, because like you go up to Deckers, one side is Jeffco, the other side is Douglas County. They both may be in two different levels of fire ban, so you may be able to have a campfire on one side of the creek and not have a campfire on the other side of the creek.
Yeah, it's the same thing here with Jefferson County and Clear Creek. It's two completely different things, and some of the people that frequent downtown Evergreen live in Clear Creek County,
Well, and you can't like claim ignorance, because you can be like, I just didn't know, but like you should have known better. That's like where we would kind of talk to people and just educate them and be like, you're out here hiking, you're out here in the middle of summer, you're out here camping, you should check this stuff before you go. That's how you're going to be like a responsible person.
Sure. And I think the Forest Service has gotten better over the years. Now there's signs every trailhead that you come in, like no fires, fire bans. They put up those, what are the digital billboards or whatever, that tow behind the police cars.
Yep.
They'll put those up a lot of times.
Yep.
And if you don't see that stuff going into where you're going into,
well, and like
you should just,
If you're, the other thing that we tell people too is like be an advocate. If you see something that's not right, speak up.
Yeah.
Because it could affect you. You could be out hiking. These people do something reckless. You could get trapped up there. And that's like a super scary situation. It'd be better to just be like, hey, don't know if you guys know this, but we can't really have a campfire here. I'd love to like help you like take care of it. Whatever it is. I mean, that's the better part of the community up here.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just education and paying attention to that sort of stuff.
For sure.
If you're going to take the time to go out and be in public land or open space or even private land and going to be using the outdoors or a campsite or something like that, just try to figure out the rules real quick before you burn down my house.
That's a pretty responsible way to go. Because, you got to think of the impact.
Yeah. And what are some things that people could do around their house for fire prevention, like on the outdoors? So if there was a wildland fire, like clearing trees a certain way, I mean, can you call your local fire department and have them come by and, give you a rundown?
Yeah, in Boulder, we worked with a lot of the houses that were on the urban interface, is what we call it. So the houses that are right on the edge of the foothills. And we would go out and do home site surveys and wildland safety surveys for them, identify like hazards out there. I've talked to different friends at many different departments across the mountain area, and they'll go out and actually mitigate properties. So like you may say, I want to have my property evaluated, and then they would come out and say, okay, we're going to limb up your trees like 6 feet. We're going to help clear out some of these hazardous trees that are too close to your house. Clean out your gutters. That's a huge one. I swear, every house in the mountains, you want to live in the mountains for a reason, but like every house is like cram packed full of pine needles in those gutters.
Yeah.
So you get that ember cast I was talking about earlier. That stuff lands on your roof, rolls right in your gutters, has a great place to like start going, and then it starts your house on fire. So clean out your gutters. Another thing was like shake roofs. They're definitely like a hazardous style of roof.
I don't even know why anybody thought that was a good idea. It's just like dried wood.
Right. Let's just put some kindling up here.
Yeah.
And
then we're going to dump some stain on it so it looks pretty, right?
Which is so,
yeah.
We'll just put some gas right on top of that. Yeah. For us, we would tell people, clear off like lawn furniture, things that are near the house that could combust. This is like prep if you were being evacuated.
Sure.
Clear out the furniture, close the curtains on the house. It helps with like the convection.
Okay.
The heat that's coming off, it might help a little bit with that kind of stuff. So anything that you can do, like you said, getting the fuels away from your house, that's huge. Like people, even if you just carry it 100 feet away from your house, let it burn 100 feet away from your house. 100 yards from your house is even better.
Yeah.
But let that propane tank blow up out there instead of 10 feet from your house in the shed right next door. But yeah, there's definitely resources out there. You can Google wildland safety, reach out to your local departments. They're going to definitely have the resources for you. They might come out to your house and like help do an evaluation, say like, these are some things that we would do. Maybe stack your firewood not next to the house, but actually put it in a shed over here, keep it dry, whatever it is.
Sure.
The things that maybe you don't look at in the same way.
I mean, most of it's pretty common sense. Like,
you'd hope.
Pretty much anything will burn. Right. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of talked about wildland fires on the outside of the home.
For sure.
What are some of the most common things that happen inside the home that might start a fire?
We do a lot of like safety programs with kids. Don't play with matches. There was always like that thing.
It's always the kids like me, right?
And they don't even know what matches are. Most of the kids are like, don't play with lighters.
Yeah.
So definitely don't play with fire. Fireworks in general in Colorado are pretty dangerous because of how dry it is here. But then you've got this like thing that can explode. Seen some pretty nasty injuries from that kind of stuff. Candles in the house. Like I would definitely encourage people, don't leave candles unattended. We have lots of college kids. They love to, like you said, they love to burn incense, patchouli, whatever it is. In fact, like one of the more recent fires that I had up in Boulder on the hill was a girl that had a candle right underneath her mini blinds. Well, mini blinds are plastic. So the candle lights the mini blinds, melts the mini blinds onto the lampshade, which also is plastic, melts all that stuff, and it just became a room and contents is what we call that. Started this room and content fire. So we got there and extinguished it really quick, but all it took was just a candle that people think is just, unassuming. And I like the fact that it like does it. So get a flameless one, get a battery powered one, and then find some other way to like
don't store ammonium nitrate on a coastline in Beirut. Did you see that shit?
Insane.
Jeremy was showing me some before and after photos today that I hadn't seen.
It just leveled.
It like changed the coastline.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. I watched a CNN video. It was like a montage of like 5 different videos, but holy
this is it
shit,
right here.
man.
Check this out. This is insane.
Hey, Jeremy, will you screenshot these too so I can
yeah.
We'll have our guys throw it up on the video content.
Jeez.
Wow. That is crazy. That's like a nuclear bomb hitting almost. I mean, the shock wave and everything that I saw from the videos, it was just
Just look at
Unreal.
It's got to be so frightening.
in the bottom right of that image. Look at the devastation just down here.
Yeah.
Do they even know how many
Versus-
casualties or?
It's like over 70 something
Wow.
yesterday, and
Yeah,
then
but like
thousands of people that were injured as well.
That is insane.
It's
my,
amazing. Like,
my buddy just sent me this text saying it's 2,700 tons, which estimated at 2,750 tons. And just for reference, it said Timothy McVeigh used 2 tons.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
It doesn't take much. I used to work in road construction with my grandfather, and he was a former firefighter for Inglewood. But we used dynamite because we're in the Rocky Mountains, right? And we were building roads, and on not like highways. So these are subdivision roads, but still, he had his blasting permit and stuff, and you would tamp dynamite down in there, and then they had the Perel, like the stuff, or what I believe what ignited this is ammonium nitrate. And it just looks like the ice cream of the future, and you just pour it down the holes, and it barely, I mean, it didn't take much.
Sure.
And you would send rock just flying.
I bet.
Yeah, if you overloaded a hole or something, you knew about it right away.
You never did that, did you?
Well, I was 18 or something when I was. I might have been younger than that. I might have been 16 or something. So yeah, I was putting a little extra in there.
Extra scoop.
Yeah,
It's always cool to just see it.
yeah, not the smartest thing to do.
No, it's amazing and like impressive, like all that stuff. And, you know, I can only imagine responding to that stuff. That's like the thoughts that go through my mind as a first responder is like that day of having that call, like what would that look like? And I don't even know how you
there were
affected the
firefighters
situation.
there fighting the fire, right? When
it blew up.
I think so.
I'm not even sure.
I thought I heard that yesterday. I could be totally wrong on
That's
that.
crazy.
but That's insane.
Yeah.
Here's another one before
Wow.
and then after.
Amazing.
So I'm sorry to bombard you with just firefighter questions left and right,
Oh,
but I
go
think
for
this
it.
is really good for people, and especially living in Colorado, we spend so much time in the outdoors, and like you said, being on a trail or getting stuck outside someplace or needing medical assistance while you're using public land or something like that.
For sure.
What are some things that people could do to take that next step? Like carrying a first aid kit with them or even something over and above. I know that like the normal first aid kits, we've touched on this before on the show, they have like 700 Band-Aids and some Neosporin and like some itch cream and burn cream, right? That's not going to, if there's any major trauma, that's not really going to help.
No.
I know that I see, it drives me insane, like on Instagram or something like that, and maybe it's just because of our subject matter for the show.
Sure.
I keep getting these advertisements for tourniquets,
Oh yeah.
but a tourniquet, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, and Jeremy, you might have to fact check some of this. If you put on a tourniquet and you don't need it, there's a chance you could lose a limb, basically, right? Or you might have to have a hand amputated or something like that.
So
Because you're basically cutting off all the blood flow, too.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of like learning that's gone on with tourniquets. I would encourage any hunter, any person that's like carrying a knife out in the backcountry, definitely take a tourniquet with you just because of the like exposure to the hazard of what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
That said, like think about where a lot of the technology of tourniquets came from was war. So we've learned an amazing amount from the most recent war that we've been in. Guys have come back. They actually have applied tourniquets to guys, had them on for like an entire day, still been able to save a limb. And what they
Really?
So what can happen, especially like newer style ones, like what you're seeing here, the combat tourniquets. You apply the right amount of pressure, you write a time on there. And then the hazard is you can create a compartment syndrome. So you're creating this acidic area of the body where there's not oxygen flowing through, the blood's getting old, and like it just gets gross, like what's going on there. So without medical intervention before they remove the tourniquet, you could remove the tourniquet, all that nasty in there could be released, go to the heart, and kill you because you just had all this toxic junk that's built up in the limb or whatever, kill you. The lack of perfusion that you're talking about where it's going to like not have blood flow constantly, if done right, doctors have been successful in being able to like save limbs for people after they've had a blast injury or something like that. So thinking about like what goes on in the backcountry, you may be out hunting this fall or something like that. Accident happens, somebody gets shot in the arm or the leg or something.
A common thing is guys cut themselves skinning or
Sure.
cleaning an animal.
Yeah.
Right.
So you want to tighten the tourniquet until the bleeding stops, and then that's it. So especially with these style like we're looking at here, where it's got the little twist, the cat tourniquets. Mm-hmm. It's got that bar in there that you twist. You can turn it tight enough to break a bone. However, you're not going to if you're applying it correctly. So you're going to...
Was it 3 fingers?
So just don't go out.
Yeah.
My point being is just don't go out and buy this tourniquet. And if your kid gets a 5-inch laceration, throw a tourniquet on him right away. That's not...
It'd be intended
I mean, get
for,
some
like,
training behind it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, like, understand the tool that you're carrying. Don't just throw it in your kit.
Yeah.
These are meant for, like, arterial bleeds. So these are meant to, like, save your life, not just throw on because, like I skinned myself on the rock. Now I'm going to throw this on, and then that's an inappropriate use of the tool. Sure. But for people that, if they're skinning or do something and they really, like, stick themselves in their back, they're in the backcountry, these can actually be applied by one hand. You can throw them on, you can pull them tight, Velcro them around, tighten it up, and then get out of there at least and like save your life, or your friend hike out or whatever it is, get you to like safety. But whatever you throw in the kit, understand what it's in there, and don't just buy a first aid kit, throw it in there, and never open it, because like you said, it's going to have all these band-aids that are cool if you have like an abrasion, but like
a first aid kit is kind of misleading because it's really just meant for, well, I guess it is first aid, but it's made like scrapes, man. It's like little kid wounds. That's what I call it. Like
I would say build your own. Like, and this is coming from my side of like first responder. I didn't do like backcountry stuff. And even when I did respond with like backcountry with both Golden or with Boulder, we would carry a full EMS pack on our back. So we're carrying an oxygen, we're carrying everything for them.
Oh, yeah.
So we had all of it. You're going out by yourself. I would say build your own. So research what it is that is like useful to have in there and put it in your kit. Make sure you got maybe some rolls of Kerlix, some gauze, some tape, some things to be able to like pack a wound if you did have something happen.
Sure.
And then otherwise like some vasogauze for like if you got burned, if you were out with a fire or something like that. But really, like, Band-Aids are, that's like, okay to throw a few in there, but, like, do you really want to carry around a package of, like, just those? That's not as useful as you need it to be.
Yeah, we had our very first episode on the podcast, actually, was Jason Marsteiner. And he runs CCM Survival. He runs, like, a survival school, and he's pretty well-versed and has some kits that he sells or will help you figure out what you want to have in your kit for what you're doing.
Sure.
But yeah, he's useful information. I think he does. I don't know if he works with different agencies or whatever, but they do like a wilderness first responders course and stuff that you can go and take too, which is really cool. I would love to get up there and take that. But what about like being trained in CPR? I'm sure anything like that's helpful in the backcountry.
Yeah, people like. I used to be a CPR instructor, and people would always weird out because they would say, like, I don't want to put my mouth on somebody else's mouth, and that is nasty. So we always had barriers. But then for us, like, as first responders, we'd carry a BVM, a bag valve mask.
Yeah.
And that's how we would, like, help with it. But I would encourage everybody, there's no reason that you shouldn't know CPR, all the way down to, like, high school age kids. It should be a requisite or prerequisite when they, like, graduate, like, have a CPR card.
And those bulb masks are not very expensive either. I mean, that's something that you can carry, and you're going to be out of breath because more than likely, if you're in that situation and it's just you and one other person, you're going to be on the phone with somebody.
Right.
If there's phone reception.
For sure.
And not to mention your heightened senses.
Yeah.
You're not going to be breathing properly. So
no,
I would encourage throwing one of those in your bag. I mean, that's something that you can pretty easily figure out how to use and watch some online videos to.
There's two different kinds that I would say for backpacking. Get either a pocket valve mask or even just a face barrier. Face barrier folds up like a little wet nap, basically, is the size of it. It's just a plastic sheet that basically allows water or air to go in and not let anything else come back, and you're not really like putting your mouth on the other person. But bigger picture is like studies are showing too that hands-only CPR is very, very effective. So performing CPR only on a person, so just pushing on their chest at the rate that's proper is more effective than needing those breaths, because you get, every time that you let off the chest, there's this negative thoracic pressure, so it's pulling air into the lungs. So you are actually moving air every time, and it's the proper amount. You're in a bad situation when you're in the backcountry and you're having to do CPR. Your resources are pretty far out. It's kind of crazy to think of like an AED, but like most of your park rangers are going to have them. Most of your police officers have an AED. In their
what is an AED for listeners that don't know? Is that a defibrillator?
Yeah,
or?
automatic electric defibrillator. And, so most of the time, the reason that the heart goes into cardiac arrest is like an abnormality in the electricity in your heart, something that needs to be converted. There's other things that can happen, and there's other like reasons that are underlying.
Sure.
But if you're in the backcountry hiking, there's some reason. Maybe you got like you were up on a 14er and lightning was up there. That's pretty crazy. It can stop your heart. So you getting struck by lightning stops your heart. This AED can restart it, and that's a like early access to an AED is like huge. So park rangers always have them. They're going to be able to respond first. A lot of your backcountry rescue people have them. But if you're just with your buddy starting CPR, just push on their chest hard and fast.
Okay.
And definitely I would encourage everybody to get the proper training on where you place your hands, the right rate, the right rhythm.
Sure.
And
you can almost find a class anywhere, any time of day. I
Yep.
mean, that's pretty readily available.
And it's a good life skill. In general, that's a good life skill.
Yeah, whether you're in the backcountry or not. I
Yep.
mean, it could come in use at any time.
You bet.
What are your recommendations if somebody wanted to take it to the next level? Like, I would say go take a class from Jason or somebody that's teaching his first responders classes.
For sure.
Or something like that. Do you have any other recommendations on schools or any place to get that information?
Yeah, I would definitely say like look into some departments. Some places will offer, like I think South Metro down where I live, they offer like first aid for like babysitters and stuff like that, so they can kind of teach them a little bit of the like basics of how to handle like basic
choking, sort of stuff. Yeah,
absolutely,
the most common things.
And then if you're a nerd and you want to like learn it, get into EMT school. You can take it as a summer program. You can take it as a class at night. They offer like multiple different schedules and ways to do it, but that's another like crazy life skill that's invaluable, is just learning those skills of how to take care of yourself or your family and things.
Awesome. All really useful information. Appreciate you answering all my crazy questions and normal questions.
That's good.
But I think it's good for everybody to hear, whether you know it or not. It's always good to hear it again. So
for sure. I was just thinking too, like you asked earlier, sources of heat in the home, like what are some of the things so when we would walk into a business and do a fire inspection, the stuff we would look for, don't overload your power circuits. So like, don't plug too many things into the wall.
Clark Griswolds here.
Yeah, you got sparks flying out of it. That's a problem. But no multi-plug adapters. Instead,
are you looking around my studio right now?
I was gonna be like that right there.
Right.
Like multi-plug adapters. Instead, use a power strip. Heaters. A lot of people love space heaters. Unplug it at the end of the day. Extension cords. They're meant to be a temporarily used thing. Don't use them as in lieu of permanent wiring. So like, you got the refrigerator in the garage running off an extension cord, maybe pay an electrician to come out and put a plug in. That kind of stuff. Because over time, like those cords break down. I would say like my wife calls me like Smokey the Bear because those little brown extension cords that are like flat. We would see those run under carpet all the time at work. You walk on the carpet, you like create friction on that thing. It doesn't take much for that like little brown flexible extension cord to break down. That's a huge fire hazard. So just thinking of some other things that like maybe like just walk around your house and make sure that stuff's done. Smoke detectors save lives. Make sure your batteries are in there. Make sure that there's a smoke detector on every floor of your home. CO detectors, that's huge, especially
a fire extinguisher.
I would say like locating a fire extinguisher is pretty crazy too. Like put it in a location that's near on your way out. So like I would put one near your garage. So like if it was a fire in the kitchen, you go towards the garage, you decide like, oh, this is too big for me to fight. I'm going to leave. Or it's big enough I can get it under control. I'm going to grab it, go back in the kitchen and put it out. Those are just like human behavior things that we've learned that are going to keep you and your family safe.
Sure.
But yeah, smoke detectors, CO detectors, especially with like if you got gas furnaces or if you got like a pellet stove or something at home, any of that kind of stuff, just make sure your CO detectors are working.
Right.
That's a silent killer. You want to make sure that's
going. Carbon monoxide, right, is what you're detecting. Okay,
Correct.
cool.
Different than what comes out of the tailpipe of your car.
Right.
People would always confuse the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the big ones. And then for us, a lot of times we would encourage kids. We'd say, as much as you don't want to, you should close your door at night. And it'd be amazing if you Google pictures of like bedroom or like house fires where like the bedroom door had been closed. It may be like scorched down the entire hall. You open the door and it's completely like a white bedroom inside.
Wow.
So whatever you can do to kind of control and compartmentalize things is amazing. So we would always encourage kids, close your door before you go to bed.
Okay.
Know an evacuation plan. Know how to get out of your house.
Yeah.
Talk to your family. Talk to your neighbors. Those things. I know this is like huge pub ed stuff, but like.
Yeah, but it's all good stuff to hear again, and
for sure.
Yeah, whether you listen to it or not on this show, whatever.
Yeah. No, it's huge. Yeah. That's like an example there.
Wow.
Looks like untouched.
That's insane.
Basically.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Night and day almost, huh?
So yeah, things that you can do.
Yeah. No, that's all really good stuff to know. So I got to ask you too, as a firefighter, were you doing any sort of crazy strength and conditioning to help with that? And what were you guys on any sort of diets? Are you CrossFit guys? What's the stick for firefighters? Is it each his own, or?
It like runs the full spectrum, but it's pretty amazing. So like the term tactical athlete is pretty applicable to like any first responder, like police officer, firefighter, EMT. So we have to be able to lift crazy amounts of weight, pick up the very heavy person that's between the toilet and the tub.
You can say the fat guy.
Oh man,
I'm just kidding.
Like it's just inevitable that always the like big people be between the toilet and the tub, and so like put yourself in that position. And so yeah, like strength was huge. Endurance is huge because the public's relying on you when you show up to be able to do this stuff. So we were fortunate in Boulder. You would think like Boulder would be like super progressive, like cutting edge and all this because of like how fit of a community it is. There's all these like Olympians that live in town. We were pretty far behind on the like fitness spectrum. Our chief was huge there on really pushing for fitness. So we had these peer fitness trainers. They're people in the department that had resources to be able to like help coach you, design a program for you. But I watched it go from like we would just kind of like work out a little bit on shift to like every day, every person was working out, doing something cardio wise, hitting the gym. Now it's on days off. So a lot of times on my Instagram, I'll post like workouts of the day. I don't have a ton of weight equipment at home, but I can push my body around and I can figure it out with some other stuff. And so a lot of guys, I think, just need to like, a lot of people just need to like stay in shape for the job. So yeah, it's huge on like physical demand. Plus you're wearing this like breathing apparatus on your back. You got this SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. You got this face shield on too. And it's super, super dry air that you're breathing. It's not oxygen in there, it's air. So, but it's like super dried out so that it doesn't like corrode the cylinder. So you're breathing on that thing. It's dehydrating you like crazy. You're in the structure fire. Yeah, it's crazy. Like to put it into perspective, like we would talk about mets sometimes, and like pulling a hose in a fire would be like 13 mets, which is a huge amount of work on a person's body. And so we're asking them to do a lot of work. And if you weren't in shape, that definitely could lead to the other hazard of the fire service, which is like cardiac events. So you may come back to the firehouse and then the next morning have like a heart attack or something. And these were like healthy people that would have this stuff happen. So fitness was huge, running that cardio. But culturally, it became a huge like commitment for us in Boulder. And that was huge to see. And industry-wide, I think it's becoming even more and more adopted all the time.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Good, helping save lives. So you've left the fire department now, and you're full-time dad.
Yeah.
You guys, you and your wife have your own business now that you're running, and that's one reason that's taken off.
For sure.
To the point to where you can be firefighter, dad, and business owner all at the same time.
Yeah.
What is your business, and what do you guys do?
So my wife is a network marketing. She does direct network marketing for Young Living. So she's a leader with them, and we've really like grown our business huge to the point now where she replaced my income with the fire department. And that wasn't really like the main reason I left. I think that a lot of people do a lot of reflecting and stuff during like crazy times. And so in April of this year, we were really evaluating like what's going on in the world, what's going on, how this is affecting our family, and just made the decision to go all in on this business and really keep me home with the family. And it's been nothing but a blessing. Like my kids like cried when I told them that I wasn't going back to work. I never realized like how much the shift schedule was affecting them, but yeah, they love me being home with them. And so Lacey works her butt off. She has an Instagram. She's got a Facebook. That's mostly how we meet a lot of our customers. And like we bring the networking straight to them and build this amazing community built on wellness. It's all around essential oils. And then my page, like I definitely use essential oils to support first responders because I saw how it helped me while I was at work, whether it was with sleep recovery, whether it was mood support, just overall wellness. And then like now the other day I posted about Trauma Life, which is an amazing oil blend for helping guys process these super stressful events that they've experienced. So we go on the worst of the worst, and then you carry that demon with you. But if you don't process it the right way, like that can haunt you for a long time. And so having the right resources available, seeking out that stuff is pretty amazing. And we're here building this community to try to meet these people and network with them as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I think anything like that is really helpful. I'm a big proponent of CBD. Pure Spectrum is one of our sponsors.
Right.
And I can't say enough good things about that end of it. And we use some essential oils at home, and I think it's good for anybody to have for sure. So
that's good.
So yeah, I highly recommend checking you guys out. We're kind of coming up on our time. I feel like I could have sat here. It went by really, really fast. I could have sat here and talked to you for another hour. So
that's good, man.
We're going to have you back on another episode at some point. But where can people find you if they have any questions, whether it's on the fireside or essential oils or anything like that, and your wife's business, if you guys have a website, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I'm at the Nate Muller.
Okay.
And Lacey is at Lacey Muller. And then she's got Facebook. Just look up Lacey Muller. I don't have Facebook or anything like that. But those are the main ways that we kind of like reach out to people through social media. Follow us on that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I've had a ton of guys reach out to me, even just on my Instagram page, probably just because of how I tag it or what I post on there. Just asking questions about, like, how do I get in the fire service? What does that look like? And, you know, it's not as easy as you think. And I love, like, guiding and mentoring people into it. And then also just kind of sharing about, like, doing that self-care like we were talking earlier. So I never realized, like, how much I was, like, sleep deprived until I needed a little bit extra support. So, yeah, check out the page. There's stuff on there for in my link tree. We've got, like, links to using CBD and, like, how that does helping with, like, detoxification because you're building up all this junk when you're at work.
Yeah.
And your skin's absorbing it. So, like, how you get that stuff out. Inflammation, those are the things that we looked at. And then like really just supporting the wellness overall. Like with the essential oils, we would diffuse them. I would diffuse them at work to help me to sleep better, help my mood to be better, any of that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think all that little bit of stuff just takes the edge off just enough so you can actually cope with some of the normal stresses, right?
And people I think right now are looking for alternatives. They don't know. You know, I think it is good to do your own research, and I think it's really good to find what works well for you. And in the world of like, just here, I'll write you a prescription.
Yeah,
you have like over medicated people all the time that really need something else. And so, yeah, we're building this amazing community, helping people to find those resources, helping to find the right tools to like guide them to, and just be that support system to give them some answers for that.
Yeah, I encourage anybody to go that route before they just go to the pharmacy and get whatever's being peddled out of there. Yeah, you know, so because we were just talking about that on the last podcast. We had the River Deep Foundation in here, amazing foundation that works with veterans and disabled people to get them outdoors and do stuff. And they were talking about that, how a lot of those prescriptions are just a mask. You know, they're not really helping. And where if you go a little bit more on the natural side of things, it makes you have a clearer mind and makes you be more in the moment and that sort of thing. So yeah, I highly encourage that. So yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I can't thank you enough for coming in and your service as a firefighter. And I'm excited for the future for you guys, and stay in touch and let us know what's happening.
Yeah. Thanks for having me up here. I appreciate it.
All right. Jeremy, you all good back there?
Yeah, man, that was great.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you again, Nate.
Yeah.
And thank your family for your time, too.
Oh, man, this is great.
Have a good one.